Sorry, one second. I'm just getting this going on YouTube. Is Ed in the room yet? Do I see him here?
I don't see him yet. He needed the ID. He's getting that on. I'm waiting to hear back from him.
Okay, no worries.
I just gave him the ID.
All right, one second. I'm just getting. Okay, there we go.
So I feel like we're all in the hallway waiting for the principal to come out of the dressing room. Everybody, this is stand by, stand by, stand by, stand by. All right, principal's walking or not. Oh, stand by.
Oh, they're walking this way. They're walking this. Oh, never mind.
Hold house lights. Hold house lights.
Hey.
Try again. Hey.
We're almost there.
Ed, if you look at the bottom left corner, you should see a mute button and a video feature. You should be able to bring up your sound and video.
There we go.
Hey.
There we go. We're getting something there.
All right.
We got to work on
unmute
the sound. We're getting to the sound here.
There he is.
Hey, buddy.
Is it unmuted yet?
You're here.
Right.
Welcome. All
right.
House lights. House lights.
Go for house lights. Principal's on stage.
Hey guys, ladies,
hey.
How's everybody doing?
Great.
Sorry about that. He kept kicking me off.
No worries.
That's the hardest Zoom I've had to get on yet, Jim. Thanks for making it so difficult.
Any way I can fuck with you, I do. It's just what I do.
Well, if it has anything to do with technology, you know I'm fucked.
Ed, where are you?
I'm in Atlanta, Sandy Springs.
No, but I mean, where?
Chastain Park is.
He's in his man cave, his man basement.
I am. Finishing my new wave record. You're laughing, but I am.
It is. I've heard it. It sounds like the Cars. It really does.
That's amazing. All
right.
Well, I think everyone's here. You want to kick this off, Mark?
Yeah, Ed, it is a pleasure to have you. Welcome everyone to another special edition of TM 101 as we take a step back to have a conversation with an artist. We've made it to webinar number 27. If you have not changed your chat settings, please go ahead and change it to all attendees and panelists so you can address questions to us specifically. And yeah, we are super excited for this. So I'm going to pass this over to Henry and we will get this started.
Thanks, Mark. Today, we're getting a rare look behind the scenes at the working dynamic between a tour manager and an artist with a legend in rock and roll, the lead singer of Collective Soul. Please welcome Mr. Ed Roland and his tour manager, Jim Runge.
And the crowd goes wild.
Hey. Thank you for having me.
Us, man. Yeah, this is great. And we also have 5-1, who has been a tour manager for Collective Soul as well. So we've got a dream team here of history. So why don't you kick this one off, 5-1?
Okay, Ed, good seeing you again, sir. I'm going to have four questions for you. So the very first one is, can you give us a brief history of the band and how you guys got started?
Well, I graduated high school early. I was 17, not because I was smart, just because of my age, and my parents just needed to throw me somewhere so they could go work. So at 18, I went to Berklee College of Music for like a half year because I just knew I wanted to do music. So from 18 to 30, I just bounced around different bands and clubs in Atlanta. And I worked in a studio, and that was my job. I learned to be an engineer, and it gave me, during downtime, I learned how to put songs together, produce, write. And it was a growing experience for me. And about 29, I decided that the band thing wasn't going to work out. It was a little long in the tooth to be in rock and roll. And I made a batch of demos to try to get a publishing deal. And it was just basically me in a basement with an 8-track Fostex machine. And there's a song on there called Shine. And my brother Dean, who's in the band, he's 10 years younger than me, was going to Georgia State at the time, and Album 88 was a very powerful radio station at the time. Back in my days in the early 80s, they were the only ones you could hear bands like The Cure, Joy Division, things like that FM radio necessarily wouldn't play at the time. So it was very influential. But they had this thing where they'd allow local bands, and Dean went up there one day and handed these demos, and they started playing Shine. This was like in October of '93. And then they asked us, became the #1 requested song. Then they asked us to play their Christmas party. And it was the Variety Playhouse. And I remember it was packed. It was sold out because of that song. We had no idea. And at that point, I didn't really have a band. My brother kind of diddled around, but Will and Shane, who were in the band at the time, had a frat band, a cover band. And I'd go to the parties, and they knew some of the songs I had written. So they let me sing 3 or 4. So I just kind of asked them to be the band. And when we got on stage that night, it was crazy. It was just like people knew the words. You know, before that, 12 years, I'd been playing bars, and the only people would show up would be whoever I dated at the time. That was mostly because it was free beer, free booze. And then things just kind of exploded. The next thing we know, we were charted. I would call radio stations. I sent it to everybody. I sent it to publishers, record labels, radio stations. I just sent it to anybody. You know, it was just desperate times for me. And actually, I was scheduled to go work on a cruise ship 2 weeks before that. Matt Serletic, who went on to, run Virgin Records and big time producer. He and I were very close, and he had been playing trombone on a cruise ship. So I thought, well, shit, I'll go play guitar on a cruise ship. And then, like I said, everything just kind of exploded. And we had to play a lot of catch up because we truly weren't a band. But then when we got together, I knew the guys could play. And like, we decided when we got signed with Atlantic, we already were in the top 40. And we thought we'd get to go re-record. And they were like, no, if it's not broke, don't fix it. So we kind of felt like Milli Vanilli in a sense. I know the band guys did, because nobody was really on the Hence Allegations record. And, you know, we did what any band that's naive like we were. We rehearsed in our parents' basement, went to Woodstock and performed, went on tour with Aerosmith. And then it just kind of kept escalating there. But we were always kind of playing catch up. And when we had days off on that first tour, my mom for Father's Day gave me our itinerary for 1994. I don't know how in the hell we did that many shows. I mean, there were 25 shows in 23 days here on this itinerary. So we had no idea. We were just happy people were showing up. And once again, we got free booze too. So, and from there, we just kind of kept playing catch up. So that's where it all started. And then in the turn of the 2000, we decided to go independent, which we were the first band to really do that and take it serious. And people thought we were nuts, but it's worked out for us, really. You know, we had a brand. We were very fortunate we had a brand. I don't know if we could have done it back then as a new band, but we had a brand and we took a chance. And once again, I go back to, we were a touring band, and we learned our chops. We learned the songs. Pre-production was always on the road at sound checks. We just became a really tight band because that's all we did. I mean, nobody bought a home for 6 years. We were just going on the road. We'd come home, we'd go back to sleep in our parents' basement, you know, because we didn't have much time off. And the time off we did have, we'd go record. So, I think I attribute a lot of it to us just getting good as a live band. You know, the studio thing I could always handle. I love that. And that's something I really enjoy, but I enjoy live too. But I think that's what sustained our longevity, to be honest with you. We're not afraid to go play every year, as Jim knows, and anywhere sometimes.
Can you also tell us how you guys came up with the band name and what's the significance behind the band name?
Well, everything was happening so fast, and the last band I was in was called Marching Two Step. There was a young lady named Michelle Ray Kaplinger who runs the Grammy chapter in the Southeast, and she's well known, and she went on to do that. Everybody, I always called it was like 4th down, you either go for it or punt. Everybody was punting, and I was like, I don't know what else to fucking do in my life. So I just kept moving. And the first name that I came up with was Brothers and Brides, because Dean was in the band, my brother's in the band. And I was trying to get Will and Shane to marry each other so they'd be the brides, just to have some kind of marketing, be kind of fun with it, and that didn't go over too well. So I was reading Ayn Rand's Fountainhead, and I came across this statement Howard Rourke was talking about, we're all a collection of souls. And I was like, Collective Soul. And I went to them and they were like, that's it. That's cool. Nothing deeper than that. Just, I happened to see it and I go, we went through, I was trying to think of the other names we were tinkering with, but that was the first one where everybody goes, okay, that's cool. And that was it.
Can you tell us also some of the pivotal points in your careers, the highs and the lows? I know you had mentioned, going out with Aerosmith and Woodstock, but can you tell us some of the other high points and some of the low points?
Well, the high points were actually, with Aerosmith, we were so naive and new. Like we literally sit in the bus and sit in the dressing room and just be as quiet as we could. We were just scared to death, to be honest with you. I remember we played Woodstock '94 and we were big fans of King's X, and they had played and we just kind of were following them. We just wanted to meet him. Finally, Doug turned around and goes, what do y'all want? Because we were kind of stalking them, to be honest with you. We didn't know. And we just said we wanted to say, hey, and and from there it was just like we became pals, and I love that band. And then the next tour we did, we went out with Van Halen, and that really helped us. They were very almost parental with us. Eddie was, I'm sure he wouldn't mind. He was sober during that time. And one of the funniest stories is we were in Fort Myers to do a couple days rehearsals before the tour started. And I had met Eddie, and all of a sudden he's standing next to me, with a cigarette, played his guitar. And we introduced each other, and of course I knew who he was. I said, well, I'm Ed and Collective Soul. And he goes, I got to tell you, buddy, this is the scariest shows I've done, because this is the first time I've been sober in my life playing shows. And I remember looking at him and said, well, I'm pretty fucking frightened myself. We're opening for you, Eddie. And this is kind of, but they from that moment, he would just come on the bus and he took me to play golf. Sammy was always just so kind. They loved what they did. And at that moment, they loved each other too. You could tell they were a band of brothers. Now the lows come when the personal side of it comes into play. There was a period about 7 years after that, Dean and I went through a divorce at the same day. And that always, when you bring that in, divorce into anything, that just kind of gets a little dirty, and especially in this situation when it was the lead guitarist in your own band. So that would have been the low. And there was a couple of years where we just tried to dig through it, and we did. And you find that, and I think Jim would attest to this, though he didn't know the past players, but I think this group of guys we have in the band now, if I could go back in time and start a band, this is the guys I'd want to be in a band with. We just all have very common, our ideologies are different, but we can talk to each other about that. We can communicate, and that's the biggest thing to do on the road, as Jim knows. And once you set the pecking order, which is Jim first as the tour manager, if there's a problem, you go there. And we've learned that over the years for doing it so long. And then the burden falls upon the tour manager, but that's what he's there for. And then if it becomes something crazy, he'll address it with management, and then they'll address it with me. But we've learned that. Don't you think, Jim? I mean, it's a pretty good packing, not only from the band, but our crew. We kind of set that, don't fucking talk to me if you're lunching and what you want, go see Jim.
I'm curious, Ed, in your early years and coming up, when you said it was all happening real fast and you guys were playing catch up, what was the crew like at that time? Did you feel like you had a solid crew, or
no? What it was our best friends, because we didn't even know what a crew was. I mean, because you know what I'm saying. So we hired our friends from Stockbridge, Georgia, and they were way over their heads. We were way over our heads. And then when they're your friends, it's still a business out there, and Jim runs it like a business. But at the same time, I think we're all friends. We understand that. But there wasn't that defining line when we first started. It was friends. Yeah. So if there was a problem, they'd come run to me. And then I didn't know how to, I'm not a therapist or a tour manager. I would emotionally get upset for them and not really know the whole reason. So it took us a second to figure out the business side of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course. It's interesting to hear that from an artist, to say like maybe there was a bit of a learning curve to having a crew at first, and to working with these guys. But working with your friends, you must have transitioned at some point into like hiring pros
we did. It took us about 2 years and a bunch of infighting on the bus, and you're as we all know, it's tight on that bus, and it's hard to hide certain emotions and things like that. And finally, it was, I don't know if y'all remember a guy named Skip Isley. He worked with Rush a lot. We hired him, and he came in and kind of cleaned house a little bit. And then David Steed came in after that, who really, really cleaned house. I mean, there was no bullshit going. And that was I think with David, that was the first time where I went, oh, wow, I just get to go sing. I don't have to worry about this other bullshit. So he was the one that taught me to kind of just go do my gig and find people like Jim that take care of you. I mean, that's basically what, the gig.
Yeah.
And it allows us to be better artists and musicians, if that makes sense, because there's no pressure other than go perform the best you can. There's none of that other overlying bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, that's our goal in the end, as not just as a tour manager, but an entire crew, is to put our pieces in the puzzle. So all you have to do is just worry about performing on stage that night.
Right. And if we can be buddies afterwards, that's awesome. It really is. And we've gotten to that point. I mean, as Jim knows, there's a dance party in the front lounge every night with the band and crew. So, but there's the respect that goes with it, with everybody, from the respect that I have for the crew to Jim, that they have for me and they have for Dean and everybody in the band. And it's, I mean, knock on whatever wood or whatever, Jim's got it in control, and it's great. I think the last 2 years of touring have been the easiest for me ever, because once again, it comes back to me learning to let Jim do his damn job, and that's it.
So Ed, on top of that, can you tell us how the scene has changed for you in the past several years from when you guys first started out to where you're at now?
Well, a band of our stature, you kind of, it's not like, and it never has really been, when Collective Soul put a record out in the day, it wasn't like people were lining up to get it. It was more based on our radio play, and we had the marketing to let people know it was out there. And we were song-based, and we're not apologetic about that. We want to be a song-based band. We want to be remembered by our songs. And I think the biggest change is for a band in our stature, it started when the casinos started like opening their doors a little bit. I felt like where we could afford to tour more. I mean, because I don't want to say they overpaid, but they paid well, other than, going to a club and they treat you well. And so, it was letting go of that ego a little bit, going, wow, we're playing a casino, but at the same time, you want to survive, and you are reaching an audience that I don't know necessarily would bought a ticket to come see Collective Soul at some, big club, or like per se, like a 930 in DC back in the day, or even, we just played those mid-sized venues, and, sometimes it opened up to it might've been an older crowd, but it opened us up to a new crowd. So I thought that was the biggest change I remember in touring for us. Kind of helped sustain us financially, and also open new avenues, new venues to play.
So Ed, when do you decide you're playing your band with a lot of top 40 hits, and you're that, and then you come into the casino markets, and you decide to become, I mean, as I've told these guys, we support 12 guys with 12 families, and when you decide that.
You froze on me, Jim.
Being a business,
you froze on me, buddy. Can you start back? You froze on me. Can you start back?
Yeah. When does the business model change when you decide that you become a working entity to be on the road to support these other guys that are touring with you? Is that a conscious decision, or is that something that just kind of happened? When does that decision kind of come in there, and how does that kind of enter into it?
I think it comes at the very beginning of each touring season, because as you know, Jim, we love what we do, and we're a very fortunate band. Once again, I go back to the band gets along. I mean, even my brother's in it, and we still get along. I mean, there's disagreements and things like that, of course, but we enjoy what we do. I enjoy being on the road, and of course I enjoy being home, but if I'm here too long, my wife is like, is there somewhere you can go? But we love what we do. I mean, I want to keep doing it. We try to, as you know, Jim, I talk to Charlie every year, and I'm like, can you get us at least 100 shows? I mean, that's my minimum. And I think a max would be 120 for us. And that keeps everybody happy, keeps everybody fed, and gets our, boyish energy out. So when we come home, we're, semi-normal. Yeah.
I know we covered it a little bit, opening for, but what's it like to opening for an act? I know you kind of mentioned some of Van Halen, and being in a situation where how do you behave, and how you work with other acts who are been around longer than you and you're playing to their audiences? How does that kind of feel? What's your feeling on that?
I think the hardest part is the set list, because when you do an opening gig, you're only 45 minutes. Maybe they'll give you 50, 55. And with where we are now in our career, I mean, we're about to release our 11th studio record. You have to be very careful, because people, you want them to hear the songs that they're familiar with, but at the same time, selfishly, you want to promote what you're doing now and show the growth of a band. And for me as a songwriter, so that's the hardest thing. I think, as you know, Jim, we're a very open band. We're people persons, you know. So there are very few bands we've ever played with that, I wouldn't say we didn't get along. They just didn't want to hang. You know, we like hanging, and that's part of the fun for us. We won the lottery already, to be living a dream that you can only dream of, and you make money at it. People applaud for you every night, but it's also fun just to meet other cats that are in the same, you know, work that you do, and you can learn from them musically, philosophically. It's just fun, and it's just fun sitting down having chats with boys, you know.
Yeah. Like touring with your brother, I mean, being like, you know, obviously being your brother all your life, but then having a 25-year career with your brother, and even Will for that matter, being in a band for that long with guys, and how does that, like, especially be working with your brother?
I mean, it's had its ups and downs, and as you know, he has his way of thinking, I have mine, and there was one point I remember we were so much on the road, and we took time off. I finally just shut it down for a second, because I felt like, and you got to remember, Dean was 20 when all this happened. Will was like 21, you know, and it happened fast. It wasn't like we went out and toured for a year and built a fan base. I mean, it was just like their shine. I took time off because I felt like for that first 5 to 7 years, everybody was so worried about Collective Soul that they forgot who they truly were as a human being. So I just wanted them to go home. It was okay to believe in this or not believe in that. You know, it was just, everybody was losing their personality, their own identity. And that was one of the best things I ever did, the smartest thing I did. But when we came back, there's still a learning curve, because all of a sudden this person believes this, or this person thinks this way, or he doesn't like this song, or, you know, and it was a little bit of a learning curve there, but we got through it. And now everybody respects each other, and you just, you know, at the end of the day, it still comes down to the music, but we allow each other to have their personalities and try not to talk too much business. I don't think.
That's
not like we used to.
That's pretty cool. Hey, Jim, Ed brings up an amazing point. What is it like to actually tour manage a band where 2 guys are brothers? I mean, that's a legendary situation, the old brothers in the band.
I think in this case, I've certainly heard stories about things in their past, which I don't deal with anymore. I mean, I think Ed will probably say that their relationship has changed over the years, but I think there's also that brother dynamic that I think you don't see with the other guys in the band. I think that it's almost an unsaid dynamic. There's an unsaid communication. I think they both understand each other way deeply than anybody else could. You know, it's kind of an unsaid communication between them that you see that enters into a lot of situations where you just take a step back and go, they got this. You know, they don't need my input in this, and I'm here if they need me, but their communication handles that.
That's amazing.
But that took years and challenges. But
I bet.
You know, I go back to, I mean, once again, we were brothers that love each other. I mean, we came from a very loving family, and I think it kind of shows from just our parents, to be honest with you. I'm not trying to get all mushy gushy, but it does. I mean, it's just, you know, even in the darker times, we were there for each other. So.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I'm just curious. We're really curious to know what it's like over the arc of your career, and what you think about now, and you know what your concerns are business-wise as an artist today versus the things that you were concerned about in the beginning of the trajectory of your career. You've got such an interesting story arc, and we're curious about how your perspective has changed.
I don't think my perspective has changed. I think you still have to worry about the business side of it, which you know, being the leader of the band, and everybody's okay with me saying that. You know, things like touring, of course, the obvious is the coronavirus. I mean, that's just a given. But then there's things like meet and greets. You know, that was the first thing when I heard this was going on. I was like, because that's a moneymaker for not only me, but it's a good pop for Johnny and Jesse at the end of the year. All right, how am I going to take care of that? How are we going to do meet and greets now and things like that? I mean, the obvious is what's going on now because we've never been through this. You know, it's so weird. I guess I could reminisce about different changes and things we had to do, you know, in our career in the early, middle, you know, from like digital downloads and things like that. But for us, we're a touring band, so that's where all the energy's being spent right now with me thinking about things like that. Do we feel comfortable going to play a venue that's only 30% filled because that's what they're going to call a capacity now? I mean, how does that make the artist feel? How does that make the audience feel? Because the energy is just not going to be the same. So to me right now, this is the biggest hurdle I've ever been a part of in my career, to be honest with you. This overtakes streaming. This overtakes, you know, bootlegging. I don't know. This is just a different time. And it does take a lot of your time. And we communicate a lot with my manager and Jim and my brother. And I talk every other day about where do we go? What are we doing here?
Right.
Ed, I'm curious if you were involved with the contracts of your shows and the inner workings of the building of your tour early on in your career.
I had no idea. I got to be honest with you. Once again, there was just adrenaline flowing for the first 5 to 7 years. We were just, you know, we weren't paying attention. I mean, our first manager, of course, ripped us off because we were just overjoyed that people showed up to shows, especially me, because I had been doing it for 12 years, like I said, where nobody showed up. And all of a sudden there's huge roars and the ego kind of took over. And I was like, this is all I want. And then when you get home and you can't buy a car or buy a house and you go, wait a second, didn't I sell millions of albums? And once again, there was a very naive period in our time just because we were excited. And I was excited because I get to write songs and people kind of accepted them. So it was good for me, but I learned the lesson the hard way.
So with that lesson learned, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you know there are things that, you know, you need to know and things
Correct.
that you need to be paying attention to.
Correct.
Is there anything these days that you just look at Jim and go, you know what? I don't want to know about it. That's not, you deal with it. Do you know what I mean? Because I have certain clients that are like, you know, you keep that one and you let me know if there's DEFCON 7.
I think the only thing that I ask of Jim now, because I know when we set up between Jim and Charlie, our manager, they've got it. It's like a well-oiled machine. There's no doubt in my mind that everything that's supposed to happen right is happening right. And the only thing I ask of Jim is, can I cuss tonight or am I going to get fined?
Right.
I mean, it's really, I know, and I don't mean that to sound flippant or but I'm just bragging about our company. I mean, our crew is great. Jim's great. Management's great. And once again, it goes back to, it takes so much pressure off me and it lets me do what I love to do. And that's write songs.
Awesome. Yeah. Way to go.
I don't think we've never had any kind of craziness. No, I mean, once again, you've done your job because I don't know of any craziness. I'm sure you've had it, Jim. But once again, I've never heard about it, which is you doing your job.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I would never tell you if it had. So yeah.
And there's that.
Especially if Jim did it.
There's that.
or didn't. As it were.
Every other week, Jim comes and says, "You know what I did this week, Ed? This is what I did.
That's funny.
Look how I take care of you, Ed." Well, I will say he finds my phone a lot. I do misplace a lot of stuff.
Like
I've never
every
lost
day,
anything.
Yes.
and then Ed's playpen in the back. We have to find storage space or shit.
Yeah, I refer to our back lounge as Ed's playpen because he just clutters it with stuff. In fact, hold on a second. Let me show you a gift.
Oh, you're one of those guys, are you?
One of my first weeks from Ed, this is what I got when I decided on the tour. Was this thing weighs about 10 pounds. It's a giant Quaalude.
Okay.
This is the kind of stuff that you get from Ed that's in his plate that he buys for himself and for all of us. I have actually somewhere around here, I have a sloth mask that I sometimes wear also. I've collected all kinds of stuff that Ed just decides to buy on a whim that he thinks is funny, like giant capsules.
Sloth mask is funny, Jim. The sloth mask is
Yes.
funny. You know that.
I feel like this is about to be epic. What's happened? I thought there was a sloth mask. No?
Oh no, it's actually upstairs. I could go get it, but it's packed away for the next tour. It's already packed for the next tour.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Hey,
That's amazing.
We actually got that as a band for Jim because we were in his mask store getting Johnny wraps and stuff. And I think Dean pointed out because Jim's so quiet on tour, which is great, but we didn't know if he liked us. It was miserable. We were like, so we decided we thought we'd break the tension up a little bit and give him a sloth mask because that's how he kind of just hanging around, getting shit done.
And I definitely don't like you guys, so let's get back.
That's it. That's so good.
Ed, I'd love to shift gears and get your point of view on the hiring and starting with a new TM. Like this is a 3-part question that I have. How involved are you in the selection of a tour manager? Kind of to start with point 1.
I wasn't at the beginning. I go back to, like I said, Skip Isley, who management, we got new management, and they're like, y'all are a bunch of hillbillies out there on the road. You've got to straighten this shit up. Nobody knew what the hell they were doing. And we were just learning as we went. And so we got Skip in. And then from there, he brought in a professional, Steve Cohen, guitar tech. And once again, it came from people recommending other people. And we had Robert out with us, and Robert was tour managing 3 bands at one time, which is fine, but it worked out that how I heard of Jim was through Robert. It was through recommendations, and then Jim came. What'd you feel for a week or 2?
It was like a short Canadian run, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you guys had tried to do a couple of shows without a tour manager, I think, while Robert was out, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, that was Tony. That was our manager at the time who thought he could tour manager. Nothing like having a manager thinks he can be a tour manager. Are you out of your fucking mind? That worked good. That was 2 days. That was our last learning lesson, I believe.
Oh,
that was Tony. Yeah, I forgot about that. Good God.
I have another question for you. How much does the management shape the personality of the tour manager and the touring party?
Honestly, I'm not sure about that. That's a good question. I wouldn't know because, I like I said, for the last 2 years, Jim's been out there, and when you get the right tour manager, they need to talk. I don't need to be a part of it. It's just they do it, and I will say the manager will call and go, Jim or whoever, they're doing a great job. Business manager will go, doing a great job, and that's all I need to hear. And after that, it's just game on. Let's go do some shows.
That's great.
Which, by the way, has anybody heard when we're allowed to go back out?
Nope.
Next year.
Jesus.
Next year, maybe.
This is a fun one. What qualities are you looking for in a tour manager?
Just like I just said, just know I don't want any day-to-day bullshit on my side. Like, I want to wake up, be prepared to do the best show I can. I want as least responsibilities as possible, to be honest with you. And I know it sounds lazy. It's not. It's just my responsibility is go entertain. And then during the day, if I want to go hang out, write songs or whatever, it's that. And to be honest with you, Jim's great because at the end of the night, he'll cut loose every once in a while. And Jim, and the personality of this band is we're very open and it's almost family-like. We always say family first. And we include, I don't like using the word crew or tour manager. It's our family. I mean, it truly is. And I like people that have that personality that'll let me include them in my family.
That's
Okay,
awesome.
great.
When the new tour manager does come in the organization, like, when Jim comes in, like, what is it, like, what are you looking for that just makes you know that it clicks? Like, or is
I
it
don't
just
hear a damn
undefinable?
word other than showtime in 30 minutes. Seriously, you laugh, but I go back to like when we started, it was such, helter-skelter shit going on. I mean, if I go back, I've never thought about it till y'all are bringing these questions up. We were just a hot mess out there. We didn't know what the hell was going on. So now to be able to just wake up and, like I said, I'm in the back, I'll noodle on the guitar, hopefully write a song or something, and we all get together and here's the schedule, the itinerary for the day, and then 30 minutes before showtime, let's go. Or meet and greets, before now. But it's really that simple.
Yeah. So I've always wondered this, having taken over tours, in the middle for people and stuff, like what is going through your mind? Because you're in this position that people just drop into your world. They're like, somebody's like, hey, this person's going to run your world now. Like,
that's such an interesting question to me. I've never been able to ask that. That's a great question.
I've always wondered what that experience is like, because we're walking in, just getting a vibe, getting a feel, and bringing our experience to the table. But like, what is that like for you?
It doesn't bother me at all, because once again, I've always said we're very open people. So I will go in and just sit down and I try to present what the attitude and atmosphere of the band is. As once again, the leader. So Jim will probably tell you this. I'll just go and sit down and we just shoot the shit and just there he is. Good Lord, boy.
Oh, that is the best thing I've ever seen.
That is amazing.
For me as the artist, I just want to sit down and let them know that we're here to whatever we need, what do you need us to do? And, just communication is the biggest part of it. And very rarely since we got everything straightened, have we had a tour manager where, I sit down and they tell me to get the fuck out of the room. We sit there and shoot the shit and get to know each other a little bit, and you feel their vibe, they feel mine, and it really just takes communication. That's it. And it's never freaked me out. I mean, I wasn't freaked out when Jim came in to cover. It was just,
no, you just bought him a sloth mask as a welcome gift.
So I should ask.
It doesn't go without saying we don't make fun of Jim when he's not around.
It's so good. It's so good.
So I should ask you, Jim, how do you know when things click from your side? Because you've hopped in on this, and like all of us on other.
I think it's the same thing. I mean, I think in personalities. I mean, we've all been in those situations where personalities just kind of, and even early on, because it's like you don't really know, it doesn't click maybe from the beginning. But that personalities are complement each other, like to my sense of humor and my way of doing things and my personality works with theirs. We've all had artists where we know right from the beginning that doesn't work, that we're in a situation where they don't want to see us, they don't want to know our names, we're there to do our jobs. So I think you get that feel pretty quickly as to if you're communicating, but it's still like it takes time to really get to, because my first gigs with these guys, I did 3 or 4 shows and it clicked, but they didn't really know me. I really didn't know them, but we knew that we got along well. And then I came back and did again another week of filling in dates with them. At that point was when they asked me to come back, come permanently be with them. But I think it took time to really, you get that initial, it's like being in any relationship. You get that initial feeling
I think it took you more time, Jim, than it did us, because we were kind of comfortable in our own skins, and I understood it, because you don't know what you're getting into. We're already what we are, if that makes sense. And I was going back, did we communicate, and we just kind of just go, hey, this is what we are, and it once again, there's nothing wacky in this organization, but there has been in the history in the past. Don't think there hasn't been, but that's what I'm saying. I think it's turned into such a well-oiled machine, and everybody has their own personalities. Like, the nihilist right there, Jim. I mean,
they actually do call me that. So yeah,
it's so perfect.
I wish more artists had the mentality you have, Ed, because not all artists have such an easy barrier of entry when starting with them. A lot of the times it's very cold shoulder, and a new TM has to. I'm trying to stay 2 steps ahead of you and run this whole new world. But I'm just guessing what your best interest might be, or I don't know if you like beef or chicken, but like it's you're too busy or too scared to ask a new artist to bother them with things. So it's wonderful when the artist is just like, hey, come on in. I understand it's, you're new here, but we're a great bunch of guys. Because it can be challenging in our career. At
Oh, I
times.
can imagine. Like I said, I've been around other artists that are challenging just to hang with.
Do you think you saw coming up over the years, and we asked about when you were when you were like a support act opening for other acts, do you think you subconsciously or consciously saw other tours and maybe other rock legends or idols of yours, and you saw how they toured and how they treated their crew? Do you think you took any of that into your own and said, you know what, I like that idea of how I run my camp, and I want to run it?
100%. We saw Van Halen. Like I said, they were the ones that took us under, and they really showed us. Once again, they were a family. They made us a part of their family, and we try to do that with bands that are touring with us. That's the whole point. We live a blessed life. We won the lottery. I mean, and then, like I said, I'm not going to name bands, but we've been on a couple of tours where, I mean, it's just like they're miserable. Why be miserable? We won the lottery. We're having fun. This is fun. Now, is it hard work? Is it, you have to be responsible? Of course. But I mean, my God, we're a rock band playing in front of thousands of people. Enjoy it. Some people just, and that's not their fault. It may be just their personality, but that's not us. And we've seen both. And I remember us being on a bus one night after we were on tour with one band, and I was like, guys, for the love of God, if any of us get 0.01% of that kind of attitude, I'm gonna knock y'all in the fucking face. And they said, we'll knock you in the face too. And that's just kind of how we are.
So Ed, on past episodes, we've had some legendary roadies that worked like through through the 80s, like, right, going through like the 80s hair metal bands and living the cocaine cowboys good life of touring, and had some really crazy times in the 90s. And so we've touched on how the scene has changed from that rock and roll lifestyle to today. So I'm curious of like how your perspective has changed in touring and mental health. I mean, you mentioned how back in the day it was going so fast, you're having a great time when you were young, but was there a point where you maybe put your health and your mental health first?
Yeah, I got out of control at one point. Now I'll go back to David Steed, and we were just going nuts for a second. We were exhausted, to be honest with you, touring and making records every year. I mean, we were doing 90, 100 shows, and during the downtime making records. A little bit of exhaustion, and then also just being stupid and letting the adrenaline out and testosterone. And I was being a moron one night on the bus, and I'll never forget, David Steed picked me up by my shirt. This is a tour manager, dragged me all the way back of the bus, threw me on the back couch, and said, I didn't sign up for this shit. Get your shit together, I'm out. And dude, it changed. I tell my wife that all the time. It changed my life and everything. Like it really did. I mean, I still like to have fun, as Jim knows, and be goofy, but I've never been out of fucking control since that day. And
well, define
about
out of
6'6".
control.
What's that?
Define out of control.
You'd have probably done the same. You'd have probably kicked me back there. You probably couldn't have picked me up, Jim, but you'd have kicked me and rolled me in the back lounge. I think, and once again, it's no different than, it's a kid learning how to, it's a growing pain thing to be on the road. So that was it. That was like 1998, 1999. And then from then on, like I said, I went through a real clean period. And then I was like, I'm going to still have fun and things like that. But that was the turning point for me. And, once you start bringing family involved, once you start having kids, get married, responsibility sets in, and once that does, you realize, man, this is an easier way to do this. Just be aware of your surroundings. It makes things easier, not only for yourself, your band, but for your crew, your tour manager, your friends, your manager, and everything. Doesn't come without saying there'll be slip ups here and there with just goofballs, Johnny Rabb, our drummer, running into fireworks and dumb shit like that. But it's silly shit now. It's nothing crazy.
Normal on the road. That's just another Tuesday.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's not like you can't find somebody. They're somewhere across town with some girl we don't know and what's their age and all that shit. It's like, God.
Oh my God.
Ed,
flip side of what my question about new people or new tour managers coming on is sometimes, you know, it's just business. Somebody's not a great fit. And I'm sure you've had that happen throughout your
Yeah.
career for whatever. And how is that for you? Like how, you know, from an artist's point of view, is it just business or, you know?
You know what? Not for this band, not for our personalities. We once again, we like to feel like it's a family, and Jim knows that. I mean, it doesn't mean they have to accept our kind of humor or our watch every damn sports game, or we like the same sports teams, but it's still a camaraderie ship, you know. It for our personality of the band, we've had a couple of those, and it makes us real nervous. Like it I don't know. Maybe we're just so insecure. We're like, God, we must be really assholes. He won't even talk to us. We like communication and people talking and hanging. I mean, it's just kind of the way we are. And like I said, different bands are different, but this suits us the best.
And I think that's something we've talked about to our students. It's like sometimes it's not a good fit, and you know.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hell, I was married in the 90s. That wasn't a good fit. Shit happens.
Oh my God.
Well, I can definitely say that you guys have been, I worked in the 90s back for your friends down at Zeta in Miami.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yep, Greg Steele and Kimba, and we were happy to host you guys a number of times at the various weenie roasts and Zeta fests and all the love. And you guys were some of our favorite people to roll through. And I think,
awesome. Thank you.
And obviously the great Richie T down there in Florida, Richie Tardanico, and his amazing, he was the best guy to have working a record because he gave such a shit. He really did.
Were you at that show in Miami where Hulk Hogan came on stage?
Uh-huh.
He broke Will's bass because Hulk came on and said, I want to play bass. And it was like when Hulk was like, you know, this is 95, 96. We're like, well, you're Hulk Hogan. You're way bigger than
Actually,
skinny boys.
I didn't get into producing for them until 96. So anything that you would have done.
It might have been 96, 97.
Could have been. I feel like
it's the funniest story. Hulk gets up there and Will just gave his bass over. Because I mean, you're not gonna tell Hulk no. And he broke his strings, a bass string. And we had no strings at the time because our crew was our friends. They didn't know you had to have backup strings.
Right.
Ed,
Yes.
Ed, I have a fun question and maybe take a couple steps back. Was there any shows or festivals where you were like on stage and you were like, wow, this is it? You were like, we are here. Like, this is like a big moment. Was there like a festival or a tour or a Pacific show where you were like, man, this is it?
Not really. I mean, we've just been a blessed band. I mean, we don't take for granted any show. I mean, there's been big shows, you know, we did Woodstock 94. I think once again, we were just so naive and everything happened so fast. It's hard to think about that. And then Woodstock 99. I think the one that stood out the most, just because it was at Texas Motor Speedway where there's like 400,000 people. I mean, it was just too many people and it was so high that I don't think there's been a show where I sat there and pondered about, you know, a poor white preacher's boy whose mama made him clothes. Look at what he's done. He's made it. I think that every damn night I get on stage, you know. I don't think there's one show that's done that.
Well, that's the perfect answer. That's great. And that was it. Yeah, I just had that question I wanted to ask you. So
We have Doug for one.
Doug, are you with us?
Doug Wilson just joined us. He's another host of the show. He was
Okay.
today, but I think he's
Hi,
here.
friends.
Question.
Sorry I'm late. I've been lurking for a while. I'm sorry, my video is just taking a second. Hold, stand by.
Live from Montreal, it's Doug.
All right.
Quebec City, sorry. Forgive me.
No, Montreal.
Okay, we're back. Okay.
Hey guys, hi friends. Sorry,
Hi,
I had
Doug.
that important exam I had to do today for my immigration. So please excuse my tardiness, but I've been lurking for the last 20, 30 minutes and I'm finding all of this fascinating. I had a question and I hope it hasn't been covered already, but Ed, you talked earlier about the relationship with the tour manager and how you guys really like to foster a family environment. One thing that sprung to my mind, and I also am lucky enough to work for a couple of artists who are very much that way oriented. One thing as a tour manager I find very difficult is finding the line between friend and employer. And it's something I have to actively think about day to day. I have to think about, am I crossing a line? Do I need to take a step back here and reassess this relationship? Should I be being as friendly as I am? Should I, I'm making minute calculations about the relationship with my artist, because they're my friends. I've known them for a long time. We hang out off tour, but when I'm on the road, they're my boss. Do you as an artist do you have those kind of thoughts with the crew, or is it just you would expect the crew to have them?
I think once again, it goes back, if they do their job, you can be friends all day long. I mean, it becomes on if you take advantage of the friendship, that's what happens. And it's the same way with artists to the crew. If you start taking advantage of your friendship, that's where you get in trouble. But if everybody does their job, and everybody's going to make mistakes, that's just part of life. But if you can see the commitment and 100% effort every day, from the artist getting on stage, giving the best they can, to the crew, tour manager doing his jobs, of course we're all going to fuck up. But I think once again, be honest with you, I think Jim and I'll be friends for life. It's just one of those, but he does his damn job, and I think I do mine to the best, and he'll fuck up, I'll fuck up, and communication comes back into play. It's not, if you do fuck up, don't get pissed off. Just communicate and go, hey man, can we do this better? Or, hey Ed, you shouldn't be using the F word every damn time at Busch Gardens, And I go, oh yeah, you're right, okay. And you just kind of build from there. And any friendship is going to be that way, whether you're working together or not, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I would, as long as you're doing your gig and they're doing theirs, there's nothing wrong with going having a brew after the show and talking shit and making fun of the drummer in the band,
By the way, he's listening, but he's driving his daughter to school, so he can't, or someplace, so he can't jump on.
Jim, check this out. I got this for you when we start touring again. You can put in your room. I'll show everybody. Can you see?
Yes.
I think I already have overdosed on that.
He's OD'd on the fuck it all. So, hey, I wanted to grab a question from the chat. Iowa Wong, who's a great lady in our business. We're all kind of fans of yours too, Ed. So she's got a little bit of a fan question coming from an industry person. She wants to know, what's the one thing that you look for in the dressing room, rider-wise? She says that Collective Soul was the first show she ever went to, and it was the reason that she decided to get into the music industry, by the way.
To be honest with you, I know Jim will laugh, but the gold standard on the road is water, to be honest with you. I mean, you just want water. I mean, we're not a picky bunch. I mean,
is that true, Jim?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those easy.
And vodka.
Yeah, I mean, they're not picky. I mean, once in a while, I mean, we will, like, Mark, have you tried the bologna sandwich place in New Orleans? Like we'll order out especially for that, that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, special occasions, but it's not like we walk in and go, my God, they don't have the special bologna sandwiches here in New Orleans.
Yeah.
But to us, it's water. And Jim will say it's vodka. Vodka's pretty important sometimes.
Vodka and water. That's
That's pretty.
Aren't those one and the same?
Clear liquids.
On Collective Soul Bus, it is.
Yeah, some days I think it is.
The best bologna sandwich in New Orleans, by the way, is Turkey and the Wolf, and
that's where we went. That's what I ordered.
There you go.
I ordered all the sandwiches for everybody that day. Remember, Jim?
Yeah.
We got all the sandwiches.
Yeah, we just got boxes and boxes of them. Yeah.
I've seen that movie. We've seen that Muffaletta movie.
I have a question. I'm curious. Have you guys, has your band, your crew, has anyone been able to stay with you guys for decades, as far as the crew? Like, who's your longest running crew member? Have you tried to hold on to crew over the years that just you loved? But in our business, sometimes it just doesn't work out, or our schedules don't align, and we have to meet scores. But how about you guys?
Craig would be the longest, I would believe, our monitor guy, which is very important for us, is being on stage. I think Craig's been with us. I can't even remember how long Craig's been with us. And our tour manager, prior to Jim coming in was with us 11 years, Ron Mesh,
Oh,
who, so, you know, and then once again, you go back to like, he had opportunities, you know, he's out with Guns N' Roses now with Duff and Slash. And, you know, we're pals. I mean, he called me today. We talk once a week at least. And he just said, I have this opportunity. I'm like, dude, you got to do that. I mean, you know, so Ron would have been the longest, which shows you, you know, you get the right tour manager, you want to keep him as long as you can. But, you know, somebody offers you more money as a friend, you go, you need to go do that. That's awesome. And, you know, tour all over. I guess Craig would be the longest, Jim. Wouldn't you think? Probably 10 years.
I think so. And then Levi, I think, is after that, I believe, right?
Right. But the crew we have now, like I said, I went back to earlier. If I could have the same band, you know, at the beginning, I'd want this same crew. We still have Straight and John Oliva out every once in a while, just kind of.
Yeah,
popping.
every tour needs an asshole, you know.
But that's the fun part of it. He's not being an asshole. It's just fun. You know?
And I'm joking about it. He's not, but we like to treat him like he is.
Yeah. I mean, like Fern, I mean, once again, just the crew works so well as a team. Like Jim and Fern especially have just gotten it like together like crazy. It's nice to have that pressure released off you as an artist. It really is. I mean, I'll even come up with an idea. I was like, hey, I need to do this. I'll call Jim. He goes, well, Fern's already on it. I'm like, oh, okay. I mean, he's ahead of the game, and Fern's ahead of the game.
Oh, look who's here.
They're
Oh, look
working.
who's
They're
here.
working toward the best of us.
Hello, Ed.
Oh, look, it's Craig and Fern. Hey, Craig and Fern.
Hey.
Is it?
I'm glad you've been
Yeah.
talking nice about us.
Where are y'all? I'm flipping. You know, I don't know how to do this shit, Craig.
Well, I know that. That's why you need to. Why don't you fly me out there and I'll work it out for you, son?
Is that an Olin Mills picture of Fern right there?
That's hilarious, Fern.
I know. I might have to stick my hand up his ass and move his mouth like a puppet. Fern. Oh, there he is.
Sorry. Yeah, you asked where we are. We're about to take the stage in 10 minutes. Where the hell are you?
In my bunk.
Miss you, my friend. Miss you.
Miss you too. How's Sherman? Show me Sherman.
Oh, give me a
Where's
second.
Sherman?
I got to wake his ass up. He's snoozing, but
Oh, don't do that. Don't do that.
no, he
Don't do
needs
that.
to. He keeps me up late at night. It's a whole thing. So, but you need to give me a minute.
All right. Yeah. Hey, how's the virus working down there? Y'all staying safe? Because I keep saying it's spiking like crazy in Florida, Fern.
I stay home as much as possible, you know, so, but we're all on our own right now. That's the way it goes. You know, it's just.
I got invited down to 4th of July down there, your neck of the woods. Would you come out if I did it?
Absolutely. Yeah. What part?
I don't know if I want to fly. I mean, I've flown, but there he is. Look at old Sherman.
There he is.
Oh, hi, buddy.
Sherman.
That's good old
Oh,
We
boy.
love when animals
yeah,
come
boy.
on.
We love the puppy
boy.
visits.
I have a
Sherman.
question for Craig and Fern.
Sure.
How's it for you guys having been there for a while when a new tour manager comes on?
Well,
I'm
what is
I'm
that
listening,
dynamic
guys, so
like?
just beware.
Just in general, you know, because that's one thing we talk about with our students. Like sometimes you're dropping in to take over for somebody or cover for somebody. So it's not just an artist you're dropping in with, it's, you know, established crew. And
when it came with Jim, I thought it was a home run for the fact that when you have a tour manager that has a fan base as large as your artist, you know, it's going to be pretty easy. You know, he you know, the guy, you know, no, I'm saying it's with love, you know, just that Jim is just pure professional, you know, I knew that this would be a perfect fit. You know, I do my research as well. You know, I do my background check and to see who I'm going to be working with, you know, as we all should.
As
And,
we
you
do,
know,
as we do.
He would be perfect for this organization because I think I had only been in the band for 2 years prior. So, you know, I think I'm still learning as we go along, you know, with these guys, but they're a very easy band to jump in and feel like being part of the family, as he's said over and over, as Ed has said over and over throughout this conversation. So it was a home run for the band.
Yeah, it always seems like, I mean, you just gotta fitting in the mix is the big part of the whole pot of everything, I think. You know, how is everybody getting along? Ed mentioned that before. And if you can roll in seamlessly and cruise you got your shit together, that's ultimately what counts. And so Jim fit in good. I like his style. It's easy to deal with. And he's always got a new tie every day.
The ties.
I
And
have
you
a
know what?
question.
Me
I'm
too.
sorry.
But you go first, 5-1.
So, and this for Fern and Craig. I'm leaving you out of this one, Ed. So what are some funny things you can tell us about Jim that we already don't know?
Oh, hello.
Oh man.
Notice how long it's taking these guys to answer.
Notice I'm glaring at them through the screen too.
Well, I love the fact that he thinks he's funny all the time. You know, if you could laugh at yourself, that's one thing. The guy can laugh at himself more, you know. So I think that's positive in anyone's personality. Yeah, yeah. So, but as far as specific funny things, I think we've witnessed more with other being the butt of a joke than Jim being it, because Jim's usually the one that is you know, saying funny things about others. So, you know, yeah, he's an instigator. That's what I was saying. He's an instigator when it comes to bringing funny things up or picking a certain scab on someone's body.
Oh God.
No, that's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's all about the funny stuff, not about like.
Good. Come on.
Yeah.
So funny. So I got one for you guys also, Craig and Fern. So we, you know, the question was, what's it like when a new tour manager drops in? But for you guys, Collective Soul has been around for quite a long time. That's a, you know, they're what we would consider a legacy artist. How's that to show up and what's the first day of school like when you're walking into work for guys like these who know the game inside and out?
That's a good question. You can't BS your way around bands like that. You know,
correct.
You can't BS your way and just be as truthful as possible. If you give them the truth, you will gain their what's it called? Their, you know, positive opinion of yourself easier. You know, they'll gain your respect quicker when you're just telling them the truth. They can smell it quicker than you could dish it. You know what I mean? So the artists like these guys, you know, have been around long enough, have been around legendary TMs in the past. So it's I'm not going to go in there and try to bullshit my way around this system.
Greg, what do you got?
What's the question? Sorry.
The question is, what's the first day of school like when you're showing up for a band that's been doing it as long as these guys have? Like Fern said, they know the lay of the land better than we do. So, you know, what's that like on the first day when you're showing
I
up?
do remember, you know, especially my first day, it was in Canada. It was a one-off essentially, and it was a small little club. It was a weird little scene, and you know, going through, and my basic instructions was you know, make sound good. Like, oh, okay, well, here we go, and did our sound check, did our thing in Monitor World. Everything seemed all right.
Oh no, he froze.
No.
Oh, there you go. You're back. Okay.
Right, the punchline.
Yeah, I got the worst internet here ever. It's amazing.
Monitor World was all right, and go.
Yeah, Monitor was all right. And then come showtime, though, holy shit, it was a whole nother thing that happened. I mean, microphones are flying around, shit's happening, band members are moving, full show happening. I was like, I think my exact thought in my head was, holy fuck, we got a rock show going on here. I like it. So ultimately, it's just a bunch of no bullshit. Be on point with what you're doing, and they're going to either dig it or not. So
seriously, Craig, how many times in the last, I'll say 5 years. I know how long you been with us? 10?
10th year right now, yeah.
10th year. Okay, 5 years. Just use 5. How many times I looked at you to change something in my monitors? Maybe sometimes just up or down, depending on my vocal stream.
It's usually not too much. You don't have much going on there. And, you know, it's mainly, you know, your vocal, and more it's not so much of a mix, but seeing what's happening. It's like upcoming shows, you're going to get more sweat in your ears because you cut your hair. That's what happens.
I appreciate Craig. I came off stage one night and he goes, you ever thought about cleaning your ears, buddy? So that's how we roll. We're honest out there on the road.
Yeah, because he you know, comes over, hey man, it's not working. You know, one ear's not working. I'm like, oh well, crazy. Here, give him the spare ears. Comes back, dude, they're not working again. I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I go back to the original one, like, I got a photo somewhere, but no need to bring it up. It was the most amazing amount of earwax you've ever seen in your life. So I think we had an ear cleaning.
There's a lot of shit going on up here, Craig. A lot of shit going on up here, baby.
Hey, we've got a great question from Amanda, this is a question for the three of you guys, Ed, Craig, and Fern. Ed, we'll start with you. Do you find one particular style of touring is preferential to you? For example, do you find it easier to do bus tours or larger flying tours? Do you like the bigger shows? Do you like bigger venues? Do you like to play smaller gigs? What's your favorite? And we'll start with Ed and go to Craig and then Fern.
I like bus tours because you can get on a regiment, you can go to bed, and I like any place we play. I mean, I really do. There's no bad place to play as long as people show up. But I do prefer the bus. Feels more home.
Do you love a bigger or smaller venue? Just personally.
Doesn't matter. Really doesn't. I like them all as long as there's people there. It's awesome.
Right on. How about you guys?
Has that changed, Ed, over time? Over, like, do you just not care now, or earlier on in your career, was it more important to you to go big? Or have you just always been like, I just want to play?
No, like I said earlier, I struggled for 12 years where nobody showed up. So to play, I think once again, when you come to where we are in our career right now, you want to do it correctly. Like you want to do your own shows where you can play the catalog that you've created over 26 years at this point. And then at the same time, there's shows you want to be where you're on a, what do you call it? Like there's 3 bands, whatever you call it, like shows like that, where you have to play, you only are allowed to play an hour, but you're playing in front of more people. So I think it's a give and take on both of that, but it's not that we want to play, that we need to play in front of 3,000 people or 5,000. It's more about like, what's the best way to, for people to hear what we're doing, to promote, even basically to promote the new music.
Right on. Guys, what kind of touring do you prefer?
Me personally, like with these guys, I've enjoyed the variety and the mixture that all exists, from small, intimate, corporate thing maybe, which can be weird, but they've also gone crazy, like in Atlanta one time where you thought a real rock show was going on at the Tabernacle. It was crazy. Everything from huge to small and in between, because I think it could get really stale and you miss the variety from my point of view. Being an opening act's great at times because you're in a little bit later, you're out earlier, but there's a bunch of scurrying around and you're not really in charge. But then on the flip side, now when you're in headlining mode, you have more say of what's going on and you can do your thing, but then you're in really early and out really late too. So I like the variety. That's me personally.
Amazing. Fern, how about you?
I agree with Craig. I think whatever gigs at the band, these guys know all the venues, that Ed and the band. So they're up to the challenge because they know what the crowd's going to give them from playing the venues in the past. So, from them being around this since the 90s, they know exactly what they're getting into. But as far as between like flying and busing, I'd take busing way over flying, especially nowadays. Flying is changed so much, as we all know. As I look at all these faces on here, that there are a bunch of legends and experts that I'm talking to. It's changed so much, so I'll definitely take the busing over flying any day.
Right. Awesome. Hey, Doug, you had a question.
Yeah, just real quick. And I guess I'm going to pose it first to Ed and then to Craig. It's a question that I'm sure I know the answer to already, but I wanted to get your perspective on it. Obviously, you've talked extensively about how you need to know that your crew is doing their job, and then you put your trust in your crew. But how important is it for you when you're on stage, when the energy's flowing, when maybe you've had a couple of drinks to set yourself up for the show, everyone's excited. As an artist, you're almost like an athlete in that situation when the lights are down and everyone's really locked in. How important is it for you to be able to look over to your left-hand side where Craig is and just see somebody who has their shit under control, who who gives off an energy of having their role under control. You know, like you said, you don't do a whole bunch of monitor mix changes, but when something is going down, you're able to look across and have somebody deal with it calmly.
I go back to, like, I don't know if you remember the movie What About Bob, when they wanted Richard Dreyfuss to apologize to Bill Murray when he's showering. I can look at Craig, I mean, because we've been around each other so long, and I can kind of go, and he knows, he's on it like that. And usually we start the show, I throw him a kiss because I know he's in control over there. I walk to the piano and I'm like, here we go. And the same thing with Fern. I've always said this, like, we're only as good as, and I hate using the word crew, but our crew. I mean, I can have the best night singing, and if the front of house guy ain't on his game, it's going to sound like shit. I could have the worst night ever, which I've had many, and it's just human nature. You're tired, you're exhausted, the voice is going to do what it does. But I got Fern out there. I know I'm sounding great. I got to be honest with you. And the same thing with Craig. Like, even I'll before I go on, I'll talk to both of y'all. I'll go, hey, I feel a little weak tonight, and they make their minor adjustments, and it just, I know I'm in, you know, I'm in good hands. And what does that mean to me? That means I don't have to worry about it, and I can act like I'm 25 years old on stage again and just have fun, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And hey, Craig, throwing it to you, how important is it for you to present a calm front, even if shit's going down in your world, you know, like it does, you know, we're on tour, we're setting this stuff up every night across 3 months at a time. Stuff goes wrong. How important is it for you to give off a calm aura, even when you're rushing around trying to fix something in your world?
It's important because that translates to the artists. If they see you pulling your hair out and tools are flying around the stage, they're going to get nervous and freaked out. I know from, you know, experience with Ed, people flying around on the stage, whether it's a local hand or me to fix whatever miscellaneous microphone may have just fallen or something, that means something's awry. But if you do it in a calm manner and have it handled, then the show moves on. No need to break their concentration. As long as their eyes are forward, then my job's doing great. If they look over to say hi,
that's cool. I like that. I like that.
And it's, you know, kind of golf analogy is everybody's going to swing and hit. You're going to get a miss. How do you recover? How do you recover at this point? Because that's what really matters. It's about get it up and happening. So that's kind of the general approach for me.
Next tour, I'm just gonna turn the mic and just sing to you, Craig, and see if that makes you nervous.
I'm gonna leave. It's gonna be weird.
Yeah. Hey, I have a question for Ed.
Go ahead, 5-1.
I'm sorry. So Ed, has there ever been an artist that you've wanted to tour with, or have actually wanted to have on a record with you, you know, as a duet or play guitar or anything?
Well, I already did that. I had, you know, my hero's Elton John, so he sang and played on a song with us, and it was called Blender, a song called Perfect Day. So I've already won the lottery for me.
Wow, that's a great question and answer. So Elise has a question for Ed. So this is a good one because I think we've all been here. Ed, do you tend to know where you are, or do you need your TM to make sure you're reminded of the city and venue you're playing each night, so you don't hello Cleveland in Detroit?
No, I've never done that. I never have. No, so far so good.
You know where you are.
Well, until after the show.
He gets every day telling him where he is. That's why.
He says he gets a day sheet. What are you kidding?
And for everybody watching, refer back to the last session about Master Tour.
I drive Jim crazy. I refuse. I'm analog. I need a day sheet. I do. I don't know why I'm stubborn in that. Jim hates me. Whatever that fucking thing y'all all use. I don't care. I want a day sheet.
Which is funny. Our last thing that we did was with Master Tour. So I thought of you the whole time about although he's slowly starting to get to it. I finally got rid of tour books, so that went away.
Right. That fucking thing y'all use. That's awesome.
Can we tape that as an endorsement?
That's cute. No, it's awesome because some people are just not into it.
I think that needs to be their tagline. Master
Good thing y'all use.
thing you all.
That fucking thing you use.
Yeah. So listen, Paul has a great question for Ed about Jim. We'd like to know, was there any one thing that Jim did that clicked in that made you go, yeah, that's the dude?
I mean, I like how he dresses. I got to be honest with you. I'm disappointed when he can't find a flower sometimes. I mean, I like that. I like people having their own gig, man, their own individuality and their character. And it just, I don't know.
God knows that's all I have. So
that's all he's got. Other than that, he's a piece of shit, man.
Listen, I have been the facilitator of the Gerber Daisy on tour. That has been my job, is to get that daisy so that it looks right in there in that jacket.
I love that.
I love it
think
too.
That's a cool look too. Yeah,
I love it.
Mine are my crocodile cowboy boots. That's it. They're aggressive boots, and I always wear them, and that's my tour boot. That's what I've got. So.
All right.
Amazing, you guys. All righty. I think that we have had a wonderful, wonderful chat with you today. Ed, thank you for coming. And
thank you so much for having me. This is fun. And thank you for letting me see my boys, my friends, Fern, Craig, Jim. God, I miss you boys. Don't take that as a sexual advancement.
Never would.
Sexual advancements.
Insight into
Are y'all
your
missing a
side.
grown man's ass? Are y'all missing a grown man's ass?
No, we don't.
I've seen it enough.
Okay, just asking.
No.
I've had my fill. I'm good. I got over that like 9 years ago.
Jim and the frantic hand waving right now. That's
No.
Thank you.
This is a family program. We don't need to see your ass.
I'm not.
Ed, this was really great. We really appreciate you and the team and everyone coming on.
This has been
thank y'all, and
invaluable.
thank you for what y'all do for everybody in the music industry too, man. Thank you for doing this. This is good and fun and educational, and let's get back on the road, man. Come on.
Ed,
stay safe and healthy and happy.
You're a great example for what an artist should be like and how to treat their crew. So thank you for doing that and setting a great example for other teams.
And thank you for looking after our friend Jim, because we kind of actually love him a little bit too. And we're so happy to know that he works for someone who's awesome and appreciates him. And you guys too, Fern and Craig, thank you for looking after our buddy.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
We like everything you do on a weekly basis or bi-weekly basis. It's really cool to watch this. It's really nice.
Awesome. Thank you for coming, and thank you for saying that.
Thank y'all. Hey, Fern, I'll call you later and let you know if I'm coming down 4th of July. Would you get out, or are y'all really sticking in pretty tight?
No, I'll get out. Absolutely. For you, only you.
Well, are the beaches open or no?
They're open. We're in Jacksonville, Florida. Yeah, they're open.
Hey, Jacksonville.
Yeah, Henry. Yeah, I knew that you're from here. I'm in Ponte Vedra.
Awesome, man. I grew up in Michigan. But
yeah.
That's all our time, folks. Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
We'll see you guys on Monday. We have a great session on diversity and touring on Monday, same time. So have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you then.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye, y'all. Have a great day.
Thank you, Craig.
Better.